Harvard math professor, Soviet spy, computers, White House. Can you name one person who can relate to all these four? What if I tell you, on top of those, this person also has a hedge fund that made $105 billion in total during his 30-year career, with nearly 40% annual return. You probably think such a character would be even too absurd to exist in any Hollywood movies. But this person is real, and his name is Jim Simons, the greatest trader in the entire history of modern finance. In this video, we will go through his incredible life story, and most importantly, how did he achieve all these? Born in 1938 to a middle-class American Jewish family in Brookline, Massachusetts, Jim Simons loved math from the moment he understood what it was. Like many people with an unusual talent for numbers, he began to show a tremendous interest in them very early. He learned to solve complex problems at the age of 3. One day, his parents found him dividing numbers by 2 all the way from 1024 downwards. Without knowing it, the 3-year-old Jim had started on a classic mathematical problem. One of the problems the Greek philosopher Zeno had addressed in his famous paradox. If you always have to travel half the remaining distance before reaching your destination, no matter how small, you cannot reach the final destination. For a kid, this was an astonishing feat. After finishing high school, he was encouraged to go into medicine by the family doctor, who thought it was a good job for a bright Jewish boy. Of course, Jim had other ideas. He chose to go to MIT and study mathematics. After struggling initially and failing a few tests, he took out time one summer to really nail the complex theorems. After that period, he finally began to blossom. He loved how complex formulas seemed to join up with other formulas across the whole mathematics realm, and showing hints to solve the universe mystery. He was often seen around campus, lying on his back, eyes closed, contemplating an equation. One time, he saw 2 of his professors deep in their discussion about one math problem at midnight in a local cafe. At that moment, he decided this was the kind of life he wanted: cigarettes, coffee, and math at all hours. After glittering academic achievements at MIT, he soon completed his PhD at Berkeley in 2 years. Its brilliance was enough to secure a teaching job at Harvard University. He was a popular professor at Harvard with an informal, enthusiastic style that matched his casual dress, so casual that he never bothered wearing socks. He was humble and approached teaching with a beginner's freshness. In certain cases, he even admitted that he knew little more than his students about particularly complex math problems. However, after a couple of years, Simons was tired of teaching. His life had begun to follow a predictable pattern, with a cycle of lectures and polite academic socializing, and he was terminally bored. He desperately needed another challenge in his life. In 1964, the opportunity had arrived, and Simons immediately jumped on it. He was hired by a national intelligence group called IDA, helping to fight the Cold War. IDA stands for Institute Defense Analysis, an elite research organization funded by the government that hired mathematicians to help crack Soviet spy codes. At the time, the IDA was struggling. They hadn't actually cracked Soviet codes on a regular basis for over a decade. Because of this lack of success, they decided to employ people like Simons with no code cracking experience, but have genius brain power with a lot of fresh ideas. The IDA motto was, "Bad idea is good, good idea is terrific, no idea is bad." It was there that Simons learned how to develop mathematical models to interpret patterns in seemingly meaningless data. And it was here that Simons developed an ultra-fast code-breaking algorithm. Shortly after Simons' innovation, intelligence experts in the CIA discovered that a coded message with an incorrect setting had been sent by the Soviets. Simon and his colleagues leaped on this glitch and used Simons' new code-breaking model to successfully exploit the enemy's internal messaging system. This led to Simons becoming a rock star at the IDA and in the code-breaking community. However, this success wasn't enough for Jim Simon's ambitions. He wanted more mathematical challenges, more cryptic codes to unlock. While trying to crack codes at IDA, Simons used his spare time to research and ponder the world of global finance. Eager to earn more money, he began thinking about ways to use his talent for numbers to crack the stock market. Rather than the tried and tested investment methods, which took into account earnings and corporate news, Simons began to approach the market from a whole new perspective. He looked at the stock market the same way that he looked at math, as an abstract intellectual system. He developed a model that simply considered moves in the stocks themselves, rather than looking at the outside context. He posited that the market had 8 underlying states. It was a system that wasn't interested in why the market entered certain states, but simply observed the different states and allowed traders to make bets accordingly. This approach was revolutionary. Simons was something of a trailblazer back in his time, eventually until today. Predictive theory that is widely used in machine learning nowadays across different fields would resemble his original method. In 1968, after revealing to his IDA colleagues that he opposed the Vietnam War, Jim Simons was fired. He was 30 years old. Stunned and disappointed, Simons went back to his teaching job, but this time at Stony Brook University in New York, and Wall Street isn't that far away. Unlike his academic colleagues, Simons was attracted to money and he wanted to be rich. Very rich. After 10 years of teaching in Stony Brook University, at the age of 40, he left and founded his first hedge fund, Monometrics. He wanted to find the hidden patterns in the markets using his math power. His first move was to invite an old friend from IDA, Leonard Baum, to work with him as a partner. Baum was also a math genius and the creator of the famous Baum-Welch algorithm, something that would go on to become a huge part of Simons' hedge fund. Leonard Baum's algorithm worked by making educated predictions, analyzing a chain of events, and estimating probabilities. For example, without knowing the rules of baseball, it could estimate what would happen next by simply analyzing patterns in the play. It would go on to be enormously important for the future, especially in today's speech recognition technology and even for Google's search engine. Simons and Baum figured that a predictive model like this would be very useful for monitoring the movements in the financial markets. This was 1979, before the days of digitized trading, so to measure data, they had to stick lots of paper graphs and charts over the walls in their tiny office in Long Island. They started using their algorithm in the currency market at first, and immediately, they started to make a lot of money. One day, Simons and Baum were relaxing on a beach, and suddenly, Baum realized the algorithm said the British pounds would go up tonight. So, they rushed from the beach straight into the Long Island office with swimwear and brought tons of British pounds when it was still low. Magically, as they predicted, the pound began to climb rapidly. Even more interestingly, neither of them know anything about British policies, and they didn't even know why the British pound would go up. All they did was just follow their algorithm signals. Only within a couple of years, Simons' hedge fund Monometrics has grown by tens of millions of dollars. Monometrics was Simons' first real venture into the world of finance. After seeing the success, he began assembling a team of mathematicians around him and Baum. Also, after he convinced a couple of well-known math geniuses joining him, he set up a new hedge fund with some new algorithms and also a brand new name, Nimrod, inspired by Joseph Conrad novel Lord Jim. However, nothing is easy. Monometrics' algorithm encountered some major challenges. Although they were buying low, they weren't selling high. In one instance, they had bought into gold, and gold skyrocketed $865 an ounce. The algorithm didn't quickly sell enough, and gold crashed very shortly to $500 an ounce. They began to incur more and more losses like this, reaching a point where the fund was losing millions of dollars every single day. Monometrics was at the brink of collapse. Fortunately, Simons were able to find new investors among his smart friends to back his fund. Although they knew money bought him some time, Simons still had to develop a far more accurate algorithm to read market movements. It was the early 1980s, computers were still in the incubation stage. While other fund managers were relying on old-fashioned fundamentals and business news for their predictions, Simons decided to give computers a shot, and he believed computers would handle data much better than human brains, because computers have a much higher accuracy and zero emotions. And he renamed Monometrics to Renaissance Technologies. The legendary quantitative-based hedge fund that changed the financial world forever was officially born. He started Renaissance by collecting great amounts of historical data and feeding it directly into his computer. Simons bought stacks of books from the World Bank, reels of magnetic tape from commodity exchanges, and records of currency prices going back to before World War II. He did all these so that he could use computers to analyze old market movements for consistent patterns that might apply to the present. However, the present was increasingly volatile. Though there were broad resemblances, it was very difficult to extrapolate patterns that would be relevant to the present from this historical data. So the goal had to be monitoring the present as swiftly as possible. To do this, Simons and his partners bought lots of expensive computers, enormous amounts of data storage, and high-speed connections to the market data. This provided live market prices that no one else in the hedge fund world had access to at the time. They combined all this flood of data with Bohm's predictive mathematics, improved by another mathematician from Nimrod Fund, James Axe. Axe joined Simons and helped to refine Bohm's algorithm so that it would be better to able predict more dynamic series, like the wildly fluctuating markets of 1980. Amazingly, Axe's contribution improved their returns. Also, by the time they have refined their algorithm, more powerful computers became available, improving their capacity to monitor new data. After this point, Simons and Axe enjoyed working together more and more, so two of them started a new hedge fund under Renaissance Technologies. It's called Medallion. By leveraging Simons and Axe's combined brain power together, the Medallion Fund soon became Renaissance's most profitable portfolio. As Renaissance expanded its investment activities and attracted more money from more sophisticated investors, they aggressively searched for more brain power. They didn't want the good ones, they wanted the best ones. One of these new high-profile recruits was a man named Robert Mercer, who was the key engineer for the computer giant IBM. He had great success at IBM, laying the crucial groundwork for advances in speech recognition technology. A brilliant programmer, a clear thinker, and a burning desire to be rich, he was exactly the last missing piece that Renaissance was looking for to level up to another success. At Renaissance, his talent for programming helped to identify flaws and glitches in the system, boosting the fund's great success throughout the 1990s. Renaissance was unstoppable in the 90s, averaging around 60% annual return with no single one losing year. They are on the freeway to create history. However, their collaboration eventually fell apart. Mostly, it was because of Mercer's political affiliations. Quiet and with a dry sense of humor, Mercer didn't immediately appear the sort of guys to have deep ideological convictions. But he did, and he used his money earned from Renaissance to fund right-wing political movements and publications, and later, he was the key person who funded the right-wing campaign to elect Donald Trump as president. This pissed Jim Simons off big time, who was a Democrat donating millions of dollars to their campaign for years. People often say, money doesn't change people, it only amplifies who you truly are. While working together at Renaissance in the early stage, Simons and Mercer's differences were not that obvious. They both love financial markets and love making money. But after they become ultra wealthy, then Mercer financed Donald Trump's run at the presidency in 2016 and beat Hillary Clinton, who was backed by Simons. Mercer was forced to step down from his position at Renaissance. The Medicis were a powerful banking family who determined the course of politics, art, and royal power in medieval Italy and beyond. Today, Jim Simons is certainly something like a modern-day equivalent of a member of that dynasty. His achievements, everything adds up, are truly astonishing and inspiring. First of all, he is the most successful trader in the history of modern finance. No one in the financial world even comes close to his profits at Renaissance. Those investing legends like George Soros, Steve Cohen, and Warren Buffett are not even close to what Jim Simons have achieved. His hedge fund made $105 billion in total sum from 1988 to 2018. The annual return was a mind-blowing 66% before fees and 39% after fees. Most importantly, his quantitative and algorithmic approach created a huge revolution, impacting not only the financial industry, but also other industries too. For example, there is no professional sports team in the world nowadays that doesn't rely on data and quantitative analysis to make decisions and predictions. But Simons' legacy doesn't stop at industrial and political level. Later on, he established the Simons Foundation for Education and Health. He founded the Math for America initiative. Also, he donated great sums of money to Stony Brook University. From a boy that liked to close his eyes and dream of math equations, Jim Simons has come to be one of the most powerful and enigmatic people in the world.